Sure got reverent. We'd like to welcome everybody to County Council. Appreciate everyone coming. We'll go ahead and start with an opening from Carl Ward.
Thank you. Abraham Lincoln said, America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. And given the contention and everything going on in the political arena right now, we need to be cautious and careful and seek for those things that will make sure that we don't lose our freedoms. And I'd like to conclude my opening with a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we are grateful to be able to live in this beautiful county and valley, to be able to associate with such wonderful people that we enjoy and that we value. We're thankful for the peace and the prosperity which we have here, for the moisture that we have received, and for the watchful care over our citizens and over our county. As we meet tonight, we pray that Thy Spirit will be with us to guide us in the things that we say and do, to bless us and guide us in the decisions that we have to make, that they will be done for the benefit of the majority of the people here in Cache County. We ask for these blessings and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Carl. Appreciate that very much. Let's go ahead and review the approval of the amended agenda. And I believe there is one more item that we need to maybe insert in there. It's a very simple one. Micah, would you share where that would actually go?
Yeah, I'm adding it as item 6B. It's just the tax sale report from our tax administration supervisor, giving an update on.
It's a very short report too, isn't it?
Yeah. In fact, I think the report is that their tax sale is canceled, so.
Yeah. Is that okay if we insert that? Mm-hmm. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the agenda with item 6B being added.
Second it.
Moved and second that we approve the agenda with 6B on the tax sale report being added. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. How about a minutes? I'll accept the motion or any additions or deletions for the minutes from April 9th and 16th.
I move to approve the minutes dated April 9th and April 16th.
Second.
Moved and second that we approve the minutes April 9th and 16th. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll need to abstain because I wasn't here.
On which day? Both of them?
Both of them.
Oh, yeah. Just take off on us. Motion passes. We'll then go to report of the county executive.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of items for you this evening. Had a good meeting yesterday with some representatives from Utah State University regarding the groundwater assessment they'll be conducting of our groundwater here in Cache Valley. And they got some funding from the legislature, and they're going to be surveying water and the chemistry of the water around our valley from a number of different wells, and the result of that will be some very valuable information about the behavior of our groundwater in the valley, how long it takes for rain or snow runoff to get into the groundwater and recharge it, what areas might be good recharge zones. So just really thankful for the work they're doing and looking forward to the information they come back with. I think it will be valuable to all of our cities who have drinking water wells and springs. And just wanted to let you know about that. If you want more information about what they're doing, I'm happy to connect you with them as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are they going to assess the volume of water that we have with groundwater? Because I thought that was the main focus.
Yeah,
Okay.
they are, yeah.
All right,
And
I just wanted to
the
make sure.
chemistry part, they're looking at several different markers in the water that they will use to determine timing and origin and the depth of the aquifers, the connections of the aquifers, things like that. So, yeah, it's, they're not looking to see if there are contaminants or anything like that, but they're looking for what they call tracers, chemical tracers that will tell them where that water came from or how long ago it was rain even. So it's pretty interesting work they're doing.
One more question. Did they say the length of that study, how long they expect it to take?
I don't think so. I don't think they said when they expected to be done. They said it was going to be a lot of work and it was going to take them a little while, but I don't think they have an estimate for when they'll be done.
Okay, thanks.
Also, we had a great meeting today with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and thank you, Councilmember Hurd and Goodlander also attended that. They came to visit our community and learn about how they can support our economic efforts, and they'll be here tomorrow. Also, the Chamber of Commerce's Economic Summit is tomorrow, so if any of you are interested in attending that, should be a good update on what's happening in our community. I just want to thank the Governor's Office for their interest and support and coming up to visit with us today. Also tomorrow, the Family Place holds their annual Stepping Up event. They always have on the steps of our historic courthouse out front. That'll be tomorrow at 4 o'clock if any of you are interested in attending that. It's a great event. Just as a reminder, or if you haven't heard about it before, they will have one pair of shoes for every substantiated case of child abuse that occurred in our county over the last year. And it's pretty sad to see how many shoes are on the steps of our courthouse. So if you can make it to that, it's a great event. And last thing I wanted to mention, just wanted to thank our Public Works Department, and I don't see our director in here anymore. He was in here a little bit ago, he might have stepped out, but had a good meeting with our Public Works Director yesterday, and we talked about a number of projects that are happening around the county, and just want to thank him and his staff for the outstanding job they're doing. They are working on several planning projects. They have 8 ARPA projects that are underway right now. Half of them are in design, half of them are in the construction phase now. They're working on several COG-funded projects that they are installing or working on road projects. Three different COG projects. They have some other grant-funded projects they're working on, a drainage study, a canal project, really working with several different agencies on those. The road division has been very busy at the beginning of the season, getting out there, cleaning bridges, grading the dirt and gravel roads in the valley floor, doing pavement preservation, potholes and crack sealing, changing out signs, pavement markings, painting, a number of road projects that they've been working on, including using some of the gravel from our Trenton pit. They were able to use on one of their projects, and they said that worked well. And then the other thing they're rolling out right now is the noxious weed spraying program is rolling out and underway now. So just wanted to mention that. Another one, if you'd like them to come and give a report, another one that would be really interesting to see the various projects they're working on, working really hard for our citizens. So thank you to our Public Works Department. And that concludes my report for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to 6A. Ms. Schaefer, would you come up, please? Now you're going to have to make two trips.
But not 2 council meetings.
One is we would like to say thank you for stepping up and helping us in the interim of the auditor position, clerk auditor position, and until it was filled by Bryson. And we have a little certificate there. And then we'll be coming by with a couple other things to present to you too. So thank you very much. And
Thank you.
You can give her a round of applause if you'd like. You want to go ahead on tax sale report, which I think will be short too.
Yes, so we're going on the 5th year of no tax sale, which makes us super happy. The last one we had in 2019 there was only one, but it was because the person was deceased. We therefore could not find them. But between the treasurer's office and the auditor's office, we're pretty good at finding people, so we don't have to have a tax sale. So this is just a report to say, yay, it is canceled.
Good.
Terrific. Appreciate you bringing that up. And go ahead, and you're next with the tax exemptions too. I think everyone's been participating in those, haven't you? Most all of them, so.
Did you want to go ahead with the,
Board of Equalization, let's go ahead and have a motion.
Move that we move to Board of Equalization.
Second?
Moving second, we go into the Board of Equalization. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, so go ahead.
did you want to move ahead with the religious or the charitable medical?
Well, we're going to be doing both, so let's go ahead and just start with the charitable medical, which is first on the agenda.
We have 5 of those before you. All of them come with the recommendation for approval. They've all, with the exception of Health West, been before you before. And Health West had acquired one of our previous Bear Lake Community Health. And a few of you generously had donated your time to go to the on-site hearings. And they did prove in all instances that their gift to the community exceeded their tax liability.
Okay. Everyone, I'll accept a motion to approve these, or whatever your will is.
If you have any questions,
Questions?
I'll make a motion to accept the tax exemptions for the charity and medical that have been presented.
Second.
Moving second, that we accept the charity and medical exemptions that have been vetted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, how about the religious?
and then before you, we have a singular religious. This particular church comes with the recommendation for denial. The reason for that is because they do not have their 501c3 status. And the statute is very specific on that, so I would say good luck to them acquiring that by next year. In the meanwhile, all they're out is one vehicle that they owned because they're leasing at the Whittier, so they therefore have no real or personal property besides the one vehicle. So that's pretty much what you're denying.
How new to the county is this one?
This is the first year they've come to us.
Okay. I'm going to say it was a new name that I hadn't heard, so. Any questions?
I have a question, Diana, on, I don't know what page I'm on, but it lists a residential building with a market value.
That is where the pastor lives.
Oh, okay, so they.
Because when I looked at that, I'm like, well, that's a residential, and I thought it was going to be similar to another one
Yeah.
that we have had some challenges with in the past. But then going through their paperwork, they lease at the Whittier.
Okay, so then his home would not be included anyway.
Oh, absolutely not.
Thank you.
Other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move we deny the tax exemption application for the Gospel Peace Church.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the Gospel Peace Church tax exemption be denied. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Diana, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're about there, 5:30. Is we close enough to 5:30? We can move on with the ordinance 2024-04. Oh, yeah, thank you. I'll accept the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Move and second that we go out of Board of Equalization. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Micah, for reminding us that. The last time we were in it for like 4 weeks.
Yeah. All right, so this is ordinance 2024-04. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 5.08 of County Code related to alcoholic beverages. In 2021, the County Council passed an ordinance that created a pathway by which wineries can receive local consent from the county so that they can then receive a alcohol permit from the state. So this only applies to wineries and what are called packing facilities, which are essentially distributors of wine that has been manufactured. And this is, so only in unincorporated areas, they go to the county council to receive that local consent. The county council consents to that entity constructing a winery, which they then take to the state, and the state is who grants them the alcohol license to manufacture wine in that area. So that ordinance was passed in April of 2021. Later that year, that ordinance was significantly amended that basically prohibited the production of wine in the county. This ordinance basically goes back to the April of 2021 ordinance and would allow wineries and would allow entities to receive local consent from the county council that they can then take to the state for their alcohol license. Now let me scroll down to the red line version. This is not a short ordinance. And so let's go through. So it is removing quite a bit, but it's also adding quite a bit, putting quite a bit back. So we can see the two types of facilities that will be permitted under this ordinance are winery manufacturers, so wineries, wine manufacturers, I suppose, and then what are called in state code a Type 5 package agency, which essentially is the storefront to sell the wine that is produced. So these, not necessarily, but could be the same. They could be both of these things simultaneously, but they need not be. And then later on, requirements for obtaining local consent. This is primarily from the state, so this is state code. There's some leeway that the council has here, but that is limited. I would note that in the April 2021 ordinance that passed this body, it did say that the applicant cannot have been convicted of a felony. State code says that the requirement is they cannot have been convicted for a felony in the last 7 years. So we need to match that because we cannot be more restrictive than, or sorry, we cannot be less restrictive than state code in that regard. One that there was earlier today, let me make sure I can find the line. Talking to some local stakeholders on this, there is a requirement in this ordinance that says that local consent can be denied. So this is under 5.08.070. I'm on page 17 of the red line version. Let's see, make sure I'm in the right spot. There is a line here that says that the applicant must have, here it is, subsection A and then 6.6, that the applicant can be denied if they do not have a current Cache County business license. Just staff recommendation, I would recommend that this be stricken from this ordinance because as we were informed today by our new county clerk that agricultural businesses in Cache County actually do not need a business license. And so we're requiring them to have a business license in one part of the code and then exempting them from a business license in another part of the code. So we're kind of creating a contradiction if we pass this. So recommendation would be to strike this out. It's also fairly burdensome in the fact that a business that is wanting to create a winery wouldn't have the business license until they've invested quite a bit of money. But they need to know whether or not they're going to have local consent before they're ready to invest that money. So they can't get a business license until they have local consent, but they can't get local consent until they have a business license. So recommendation here would be actually to remove this, make things a lot easier for them. So I know there's a lot. You've had a lot of questions. This did go through ordinance and policy last Friday, where it was approved 3-0, but there were a lot of discussions. There was a lot of discussion, and happy to answer any questions. And our county attorney, I may turn to him if need be.
What questions do we have?
I have a question for the people that are on OMP, because I read through this the best I could, but tell me what are the highlights that you guys were concerned with, and what was that discussion about? Did anything change, or is this exactly what you discussed?
This is what we discussed.
Okay.
This is what we discussed.
The only exception would be
Except for the exception.
the
of
number,
what-
the
yeah,
six.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What Micah didn't comment on is the fact that this is essentially the agenda or the ordinance that was passed in 2021. But then when it came back for a fee schedule approval, somehow it had gotten completely changed from what was originally passed in 2021. And so this is to right the ship and get it back to what the original ordinance said.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a few changes, like I mentioned, the felonies, the 7-year felonies in the last 7 years. That's one difference. A few other small things. But this is essentially the same ordinance. The number is 2021-05 that passed in April of 2021 that allowed for wineries.
Just those few little tweaks was just to basically align us with state code. Yeah. Other
I have a
questions?
question, and I'll turn this to our attorney. In the red line version, it talks about proximity to church, schools, playgrounds, and stuff like that, but we've taken it out from the county side. Is there any direction on the state when they go there that the proximity to anything is involved or called out? Does that make sense?
Are you referring to if there's any state code provision requiring?
Yeah, does that cover, or does the county need to talk about if they want to watch where packaging is to any proximity?
I'm not aware, Micah, please.
Yeah, this is what you're talking about, Nolan,
Right.
right here. That's being removed. That says that in granting consent, the county council shall give consideration to the locality upon which the proposed resort restaurant is to be operated in its proximity to any existing similar establishments possessing similar licenses, its proximity to any school, church, library, public park, playground, or wilderness, public, more good things. And my understanding, talking to not Taylor, but other attorneys, some other civil attorneys in our attorney's office, is that the state does have requirements. We're trying to better understand what those requirements are about this proximity language, but that the state will vet that when they're granting a license after local consent is given.
So taking a look, State Code 32B1202 talks about these sort of distance requirements that state liquor stores, package agencies, and all retail licenses, they have to, it says that they may not be located within 600 feet measured by ordinary pedestrian travel or 200 feet measured in a straight line. And restaurants may not be located within 300 feet measured by ordinary pedestrian travel or 200 feet measured in a straight line from these community locations defined as church, public or private school, public park, public playground, or library. So, but like Micah said, those types of restrictions would be evaluated at the state level as well. So.
Okay, because this was stricken out, I'm just hoping we're covered some way.
Good question. Others?
No, thanks to the OMP for
Yeah.
time on it.
Yeah, I do. I really appreciate righting the ship on this one and getting this one taken care of. So we'll move on. It is initial proposal. We'll look at it here in just a few seconds. Let's go out with the resolution 2024-09 also. Who is going to share? Oh, that's right. There we are at the back. So go ahead. Share those details and process and.
So good evening, council. This is an exciting day. This is our first application to review for our open space bond that was approved a couple of years ago. After our open space committee spent this whole last year going over a process and coming up with a way that property owners can apply, we have our first application that has came in and came to the council with a positive recommendation. So my plan is I'll summarize the application, some of the ratings that the COSAC gave each aspect of the application, and talk a little bit about their recommendation, and so that to give you a little bit of background on it, and kind of talk a little bit about the process that we went through as well. And so to summarize the application, it's 115 acres located between Providence and Nibley, with a strip of Millville that goes through it, and it's unincorporated pieces of property on both on the north and south side as well. And so up here is the map of the proposal. They have a more detailed map that was within the packet, but this map, just to visualize on the screen, was a little bit easier. So everything in orange is what is being requested, and then this section in this hashed greenish turquoise color is property that's already within a conservation easement, approximately 60 acres. That's already in, and 115 acres being requested. The request is to put it in an agricultural conservation easement. The property is currently being used as a cattle operation. The applicant has requested that it remain as an agricultural piece of property. For some of the other factors that were took under consideration, we'll go into more detail, is there's quite a bit of wetlands and waterways on the property, and same with some wildlife habitat that utilizes those wetlands. And one of the main issues and biggest parts of the debate that went through COSAC is there is currently a master plan trail that goes along the Blacksmith Fork River that goes through the property. And so I can talk a little bit more about that and about what they recommended. So the COSAC, our Cache Open Space Advisory Committee, and a little bit of the concerns that the applicant has raised with that master plan. And so just to kind of put us where we're at, this was a process that was approved, that the Open Space Committee created and was reviewed and approved by the council, where we're breaking it out into 2 rounds. And so this is the first round of review. This round was intended to generally look at the scope of what was being asked and whether or not the property generally met the broad criteria set out by the bond. This would allow the applicant to go do, if approved in the first round, allow the applicant to go gather more information, potentially find other funding partners to preserve the open space, and then they'd come back with the second round application, which would be reviewed based on the additional information that was provided, and if approved, then funded based on any conditions that were set. And so I guess what I'm saying is, if it's approved today, this essentially just triggers them to be able to go and do the next steps, but it's not an official approval or any obligation to fund the project at this point. So the committee, Open Space Committee, created a scoring criteria based off the bond language, where they reviewed these items and then scored them accordingly. And so the main items that they reviewed was whether it protects scenic vistas, preserve open lands near valley gateways, maintains agriculture, maintains waterways, maintains wildlife habitat, allows public access, and if there's any distinguishing factors. The total points that are available are 100. However, it is anticipated when we created this, or when the committee created this, that no project would score an even 100 because there's so many variety of factors, and each property will have a little bit different key things that we'll be looking at. And you also notice that everything is scored evenly. Other than the distinguishing factors, everything that's scored evenly is language taken directly out of the bond itself. And so the distinguishing factors was a way just to see if there's any significance or historic factors that may want to be considered. So this was the COSAC's recommendation. And we typed this out in the meeting to make sure that their recommendation was clear with what they intended to do. And so they recommend the County Council approve the Elkhorn Ranch Phase 2 open space application to move to the second application phase. Trails connectivity was not resolved within this application. The council should note that this property is in an area critical to trail connectivity according to the County Trails Master Plan. And then the average total rating was 71.375 of everybody who scored it. It is important to note that we did receive an update to the scoring that I emailed out. That is not factored in. I don't have that in this presentation, unfortunately. But that was an additional 5 points towards the public access when the applicant initially scored it as 0. And he stated the reasons within that email. And so I'll go through each of these criteria real quick, just so that you can maybe have a little bit of background on why the committee scored it the way they did. So the first one is protect scenic vistas. COSAC scored it 13.375 on average. Part of the primary reason for this is along a major highway. There's an average daily traffic count of 25,000 vehicles, according to UDOT. And as you can see on the chart, this is from UDOT's website, that number has increased year over year for the past 10 years and is anticipated to likely to continue to increase. There was also some discussion that if a master plan trail does go either adjacent or traverses through the property, that would also enhance some of those scenic vistas that this property provides. And as many of you know, if you've driven by this property, it is a very scenic piece of property. You have the river, a lot of trees, the Wellsvilles in the background. The next one was preserve open lands near valley gateways. The score was 6.25. There was some discussion about what this actually meant. There were some that felt like this was a vista gateway into this part of the valley. There's others who felt like you could see it from several of the gateways within the valley. And so and then there's others who felt like it wasn't in the gateways at all. And so if you look at the actual scoring, you'll see several had high marks and others had zeros. So your average came out to about a 6.25 on that. The next one is maintain agriculture. COSAC gave it a perfect score of 15. 97% of the property contains critical farmland, and that's based on NCRS data, and that was noted in the application. It is used as a cattle operation, currently used as a cattle operation, and the property has historically been has been operating as a cattle operation for many years, and the property was part of the historic Elkhorn Ranch, which was one of the first pioneer settlements here in the valley.
Be first, not one.
Be first, yes. Thank you. So maintain waterways. COSAC scored at 14. There's about 41 acres of wetlands, according to the National Wetland Inventory, contained within the project. The Blacksmith Fork River measures about 0.46 miles long that traverses through the property, and there are other open canals and springs that are also on the property. Maintains wildlife habitat. The score was given as 11.375. The applicant indicated that there were several aquatic species living in the river that's in the property, including the Bonneville cutthroat trout. We did a site tour in March, and during the site tour, I counted 15 different bird species during that, including cranes, a couple hawks, multiple waterfowl, species of ducks, and other birds that I saw. There's also been observed herds of deer. Actually, today I saw 3 deer on the property coming home from lunch and from a meeting in Hiram. However, there is some concern with increased vehicle traffic in the area, whether or not that will be long-term sustainable, or whether deer will continue to herd there. There's also other animals, including woodchucks and other mammals that live on the property. This section was probably the most debated item as the committee reviewed it. Allows public access. So it scored a 1.625. Once again, that's not factoring in the increased score from the one committee member. So just a little bit of background on this. The county and surrounding cities trail or transportation master plan have a master plan trail that goes along the Blacksmith Fork River. UDOT recently listed this as a tier 1 or phase 1 for their Utah Trail Network, which if any of you are not familiar with that, it's a new directive by the state to create a master plan trail system that traverses the entire state to kind of serve as an active transportation backbone. And so they went through some funding. They have about 90 million available for this first phase, and they've put this trail on the list of projects they would like to fund. The property owner has raised objections to the proposed alignment through the river or along the river, including interference with their agricultural operation. For instance, they have cattle, people have dogs, that could become an issue. Or the applicant has also indicated that they move cattle across the river to each side of their property for grazing. And so even though we could potentially do fences and try to mitigate some of that, there would be some inconveniences that would be associated with the trail of that nature. And then there's also raised some concerns about privacy. And the applicant's here, and I'm sure you'd be able to speak a lot more to that too. Staff, this will happen kind of independently of this project. We received some funding to do a feasibility study to make the connection between the Ridgeline Trail System and the trail system in Logan City at their soccer complex. And when we talked to the applicant before the application even came in about proposed trail along the river, and the applicant told us, or the property owner, Mr. Furman, told us he was not interested. And so we proposed to do a trail alignment along 165 to go north, and then would cut across. There's an old roadway plat alignment that's outside of this application. Or outside the boundaries of this application, but is currently being farmed by Mr. Furman, currently uses pasture, if we look at the fence lines. But to go up along that old right-of-way and then connect into the neighbor to the north, who has indicated a desire for the trail system as an alternative, so that way we could still keep the same trail connection points, but not, but still uphold other conservation priorities that may be at play. And then the last one is distinguishing factors. It got a score of 9.75, and this was the only section that was out of 10. And so one of the primary reasons for that was some of this historic value that is associated with the project. It's been farmed for probably one of the most historic farms in the county, as far as our Mormon pioneer settlements and history. And so the committee found to give it a fairly high rating. And so the next steps, this is the first time this has came to the council. So I think the council has some discretion on how you want to handle this moving forward. But like I said, an approval today would allow the applicant to move forward with the next phase and to gather more information and more detailed information for an application. They've indicated they're looking at other funding sources to try to balance out so the county wouldn't be paying for the full conservation easement. They would also, within the first phase, the committee set up not to look at pricing or not to require pricing at this time, but mostly looking at whether or not they felt like the project met the overall goals. And then that would allow the applicant to go and get some of that information and make a more detailed request on that. It's also important to note that the property owner, Mr. Furman, is working with the Bear River Land Conservancy, who's actually serving as the agent on the project, where they would likely end up holding and maintaining that conservation easement over the long term. That's everything I had. I know that was quite a bit of information pretty quickly. Are there any questions for me? Yes.
So we came up with the criteria, and I agree with the landowner as far as trails, because we said maintain agricultural. So I think when we align the scoring of this, because you came up with an average score of 71. So if his goal is to maintain agriculture, then are we saying there's a minimum rating on anything before you bring it to the county? Or are you just saying, here's the number and the county's got to decide, county being the council? Because I'm like, depending on who the landowner partners with on funding, which he's done with Bear Lake Conservancy District, means that it is agricultural, and agricultural is less defined as public trails and everything else.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to find out where we come with some numbers on there to say, okay, because we all like open space, and open space is agricultural, it's also trails, it's also the other. But if the landowner comes and says, I want to maintain agricultural, I think that was a big part of what the council wanted in this open space was agricultural. So I want to make sure that it seems like we're dinging this because it's not trails, but yet it's meeting the farming and the agricultural part. And that's where I want to see emphasis and credit given, especially when we're saying, you look at the congestion around this area and the fact that it can stay farming for a while. And I agree, I run farm ground, and if you raise my critique because I allow public trails to come on it, then that affects my ability as farming.
Yeah, and maybe I can speak a little bit for the committee to if you look at the recommendation, it was mostly just noting that the trail was going through it. They still made a positive recommendation without much resolution on what to do with that alignment. And I think it kind of came down to 2 points. There was some concern from committee members where we have a master plan trail and infrastructure, or master plan infrastructure that goes through the property about whether or not county funds should support a project that would potentially have conflict with one of our master plans. And then on the other side,
Can I just say, if a landowner owns property and the county trails has said we're going through there, that almost senses eminent domain.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I get concerned about that.
Me too.
Well, if I could address that, first, I want to say I love this project. When we first started talking about an open space bond 7 years ago, this was the very first location that came to my mind that I thought would be perfect to preserve, because it literally checks every box, as we just saw. It has the historical significance, the wildlife, the waterways, the agriculture, the vistas. It's on a major gateway. It is, I think, the perfect project, and I'm so happy that the Furmans are willing to participate in this process. When we wrote the language and put it on the ballot, we specifically put in there that this needed to be voluntary, and it is a voluntary process. So no one will be forced to have their land, and no one can be forced to have their land put into a conservation easement through this process. Mr. Furman has voluntarily entered into these discussions and negotiations, and I think it's important for the county to recognize what exactly is happening right now. What's happening is a negotiation for a purchase. We're not forcing anything on anyone. We're negotiating between the two of us, the county and a private landowner, for the county to purchase a conservation easement with these tax dollars that our citizens have voted to set aside for that purpose. So I think there's a risk in this process that we might view this like some of our other land use approvals. This is not a land use approval. This would not be an exaction. Oftentimes when somebody comes for a rezone or a subdivision, we require them to hand over a right-of-way or to dedicate land for various purposes. This is not a land use approval. This is a negotiation for a purchase. And we're negotiating to buy something, to use tax dollars, to buy something for the public. And we're buying open space or a right to keep something open in perpetuity, which I think is a wonderful thing. But I think it's important that we keep that in mind, that the county has a different role in this than they normally would have. This is not a land use approval. And so I think it's important that we enter into the discussions with Mr. Furman from that perspective, that we're negotiating on behalf of the citizens to buy this open space or to buy access to this open space. And when this item was placed on the ballot, the number one concern that I heard from residents was whether or not there would be public access to this land that the public was paying for. So I share that because I know that is something our citizens care about. At the same time, this project checks every other box. It does. And I do have a couple questions for you about that, Stephen. On the open space, how is it that they got any points on the open space? Is there any, not open space, on the public access? Is there any public access that's being offered?
No. So maybe just to get to the other, before I answer that, if it's okay, if I finish kind of the thought of the COSAC, one of the reasons why they didn't come to that real recommendation is about a few of them felt the way that I just stated about the master plan, but there are several others who felt that this is a voluntary item, and that that if this was a property with these same features located not inside a master plan trail, whether or not we'd be giving it the same type of review or type of criteria. So they felt that it scored very well in the other boxes, and so therefore it should be given a vote of approval. And there's some thought that eventually that, you know, the county will have the right to, or UDOT will have the right to put a trail within publicly owned right-of-ways. And that kind of gets to where there are some points given, is they felt that a trail system that ran adjacent to the property would help meet some of those public access criteria. Even though there wasn't direct access onto the property, there'd be direct public access adjacent to the property.
You mean if a trail were built along the highway?
Correct.
The UDOT right-of-way?
Correct.
So speaking of UDOT, can you just clarify, so you said that this portion of trail that's on our trail master plan has been approved by UDOT to be placed on their priority list for the Utah Trail Network?
Correct. It wouldn't, yeah, so it's been approved to be put on their priority list. So it hasn't been officially approved or funded. They have a meeting in May to kind of go over those details, and then there's a bunch of other things that need to be worked out. But essentially, yes, we just met with UDOT today about this, the county, Millville, Providence, and Logan. And they're looking at doing design of the trail system this year and potentially looking at construction in 2025 and 2026.
And how many other trails in Cache County made it to the UDOT list?
This is the only one for this phase. We have another one in phase or tier 3 or within the next few funding years.
And then about the scoring, was the scoring developed to be able to determine if someone should be funded at all, or was it developed to be able to rank multiple applicants against each other?
That's a really good question, and I guess I don't know if I can speak for the whole committee, but it seemed like when they created the scoring criteria, they weren't sure if we were going to get a dozen of these in all at once, if we were going to get 2 of them in at once, or not. Yeah, we weren't really sure what was going to happen, and so the scoring criteria was created to serve as kind of a guiding post for how projects would rank up against the criteria set out in the bond.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
If I could just mention one more time, I love this project. I hope the council votes to recommend it. I think this is a fantastic example of what our bond should be used for. With that being said, I hope we can reach some kind of compromise or agreement about some kind of public access.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, you bet.
If I may, Chris Sands has come to our meeting and he is the chair of the COSAC committee, and he might have a different perspective of how are we ranking what was your takeaway of the ranking? If you would, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I thought your point of view would be beneficial as well.
Sure. Thank you, Council. So Chris Sands, I'm chair of the COSAC and also a member of the Planning Commission. As others stated, and Stephen in particular, you know, this is a great milestone to be at, and we're grateful to be able to assist you in making a recommendation for projects. I just want to echo some of the other things that have said. This is a great project. I think the COSAC feels strongly about that. And just to reiterate, there will be no 90-plus point project. I mean, it's just extremely unlikely that any particular project would score even a 90. And so I don't want you to feel bad. We all grew up on the 0 to 100 scale, and you know, a 71 is a C, right? And which is fine. But no, I think what you'll find, what we will all collaboratively find as we get more applications in, probably something between 70 and 85 is going to be a really great project that should be considered seriously for moving on to the next phase. And so the scoring, you know, that gives a little bit of context to the scoring. And was there anything else you wanted me to say about scoring in particular?
And you iterated it very well. There's not going to be a 100-point project. And we had a comment about ag and public use. Yeah. And there may be some way that they can, but oftentimes we will have to choose one over the other, which again will result in a lower score. But I don't think they're scored against each other. It's just looking at our bond language. And again, COSAC committee has done a wonderful job coming up with this rating system, so at least we can quantify some of these priorities that we put with the bond. So
this is a great first project, 175 acres, and I mean, you know, just zoom out of from the property and you can see how under threat it is. It's fantastic. It's big enough that it can continue to function as a working ranch, you know. There could be other projects much smaller in scale that really wouldn't pencil as a normal operation. So I think, as was pointed out, I mean, it's really hitting a home run as far as the agricultural component, and then the other wildlife, water quality, and other important factors historically. Obviously, all of those things, it scored very well in all of those categories. And the public access, you know, was the thing we focused much of our time and debate on. And as has been presented, there's been a wide range of feelings there. And I think I'm also hopeful that, you know, something like this doesn't prevent a project from moving forward. I also see this as, you know, a negotiation. We're talking about the county participating in a portion of the funding, right? I don't think this is a project necessarily that should be purely funded by the county at all. But if you think of it in the context of we're providing potentially a portion of the funding, other agriculturally oriented programs are going to provide a significant amount of funding for the project. And then, you know, you can decide how much it's worth to not have that public access. If we get to that point and we decide we want to move forward with funding this project, you know, that's up to your discretion at that point, and you can take that into consideration. But it's an excellent project, and I would be surprised if there'll be many more that would score or, you know, benefit more citizens than this one will. So,
thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Anything else I can answer while I'm up here?
Question. I know that it's too early to determine the cost.
Yes.
Like, I understand that. However, in any kind of scope, like, what if this comes in and we say, yes, move forward, and then it takes half of our whole bond
Right.
Like, is there any way to put some kind of a scope on that before we say, yeah, go ahead, get your funding, and then bring it to us?
I don't think you have to. You're not making a financial commitment at this stage. And I think, you know, the purpose of that second stage is really to flesh those kinds of questions out a little bit more. How much money are we looking for here? And then what proportion of that can the county play in their part? And obviously you're gonna take that into context with all the other projects you would also like to fund. And so I think you'll make the right move when the time comes for that. And you know, as much, and I share the same feelings, like, and I've expressed this with the applicant and their agent, is just like, you know, this is the question that people are going to want to know, is how much and when can we get to that point? And rightfully so, they say, you know, unless this looks like a project that you're interested in, why go to all the expense to find answers to those questions? And so that's what round two is for. And, you know, approving to go to round two is not approving the project for funding or anything like that. It just says, we believe this is a valuable project. It meets our criteria. It's valid for funding. Let's find out more about what that means. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, council members? Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
One additional thing I wanted to point out is, as Chris mentioned, the applicant is likely going to other partners that will likely have agricultural funding or agricultural use in mind. And the applicant has raised concerns that if a trail traverses through the center of the property, that could potentially have a negative impact on receiving those. And staff and Councilmember Buse, we have independently verified those concerns are legit. And so that's something also to take into consideration as we're considering this, this application that's before the council tonight.
And there lies my point of 71 average. I agree with the executive. This is an awesome property to do. I just want to get in the future, as we view agricultural, because a lot of agricultural aren't going to have public access, but you've got the open space. So as Chris pointed out, 70 to 85, I'm just looking for a guideline, you know, the pirate guideline type thing of agricultural coming in here, because that's what we're losing is our open space on our agricultural side. So as these guys talk about it, and I agree that if you got cattle there, the worst thing you can do is have somebody walking through with dogs or whatever else and stuff like that. And my part is if he's aligning that additional funding from an agricultural source, that just enhances this part of the open space bond for agriculture, is what I'm saying. So hopefully that makes it clear where I'm concerned from.
Mr. Chair. I have just some questions of procedure at this point, because I've had a lot of residents reach out to me. Will we be doing a public hearing at a later stage as far as the council goes? I don't know. Because they would like to come into that setting to be able to voice.
I can answer the legal question is we don't have to. And so there is, I think it's up to the council whether or not you'd like to open up an application for public comment.
Because I was looking at your diagram that you had, it did not have public hearing on
Correct.
that. Okay.
Public hearing actually came at the bond.
Yep.
At
So
the
now it's
time- at the time of the
purely a
bond, yeah.
legislative decision. without-
That's how I understand it. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
No, you're absolutely right. The decision of whether or not to spend the money is purely within the council's
Yeah.
prerogative. Whether or not you want to receive public comment on specific projects is up to your discretion.
Okay. Well, thank you.
We'll talk about that.
You know, and in deference to what Mr. Zook was saying as far as the council's understanding of this, I think every one of us understand that we are not viewing this as providing funding for some kind of a subdivision, needing to put in roadways and these kinds of things. That's not the purpose of the bond. But it is to preserve agricultural space and to preserve open space, period. And so I can't think of a more perfect place to put the money into than this particular piece of property.
Can we hear from?
Other questions, comments? Yeah. I'm open to, if,
I'd like
a spokesman, if, Mr. Furman would like to get up and share something. Oh, whoa. Yeah, we're gonna get a football play right now.
So Joe has asked me to just speak a little bit about the project. So my name is Christopher Howell. I'm Joe's son-in-law, married to his daughter, Kristen. I actually teach and did coach, just retired at Skyview, so that's where Dave threw that little jab. I appreciate it. I've been married to Kristen, I think, for 28 or 29 years. I've been a part of the ranch for well over 30 years. Kristen and I will be the 5th generation to run the ranch, which I couldn't be more proud and or blessed to be able to say that I'm going to be able to do that. Joe's, one of his wishes for as long as I've known him is to continue to keep this ranch running as a working cattle ranch. Part of that process is protecting it from encroachment by development, and this easement enables that or allows that or gives us a better opportunity to be able to do that without having to fend off the wolves, as it were. On a daily basis almost, we have people driving down a private lane without public access right now. We have to remind them that it is not a public road. A really good example, we had a teenage photographer decide he wanted to chase the cows the other day to get a cool picture. It happened to be our heifers. If it's our old cows, that ends in a lot different scenario. And now we become liable for that. Ranching has an extremely small profit margin, and if we are forced to go out and buy another $5 million liability policy, it takes that profit margin away. We want to protect this land at all costs, and we understand that it's a process and that we want to be able to work with people, but we also want you to understand that this is our livelihood, and this is what we want to do forever. This is what we want to pass on to our kids and their kids and so on and so forth. We talked a lot about wildlife. In my lifetime, they've reintroduced turkeys to the valley. For some people, that's not a great thing. Every spring, they migrate down the Blacksmith Fork River, and we've had a flock of turkeys roaming around, and most other people want to get rid of them. We love seeing them. The deer are there. We've had an amazing opportunity throughout the winter to have eagles who winter there as well. So to us, as Mr. Zook said, this is the valley's most historic farm. One thing from an historical perspective that I would like to add is the fact that the first white child born in this valley was born on that farm, and I think that's pretty cool. And so if you have any questions for me, I think that's the majority of what I had to say. That was
I've
relative.
got a lot of questions.
Well, let's go.
But they're not about this.
Okay.
So we'll talk later, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, football question.
Yeah.
No, appreciate it. Any other questions, serious?
Thank you for your time.
No, thank you. Joe?
I would like to make one comment and ask one question. The comment is, when this master plan for the trails was initiated, I had no idea about it. I wasn't contacted. Is that legal? Can they just say, we're putting a trail through your place, like it or not? I don't think so. The master plan, or whatever it is. Can they do that? Is that feasible?
Great question. That is a great question because there's master plans and a little bit of everything. And to me, it's the master wish. They still have to go, to me, it's always that balance of private property rights. True. As to what and the public's interest, all those, you got to bring all those together. And we'll go ahead and answer. You had a comment there too about that.
Yeah, so governments have discretion to plan out future infrastructure. You don't necessarily have to get permission from a property owner to plan infrastructure through or around their property. However, implementation of that master plan is another story, obviously. For trails within the state of Utah, you can't condemn property for it. It has to be a voluntary exchange. A lot of times you can do that as an exaction through like a development. So if they want to subdivide, you can require infrastructure to be built. But yeah, so we couldn't, unless the property owner is willing or needing some sort of increased development permit or increased impact, or increasing their impact in some way, then typically government cannot require a trail unless they voluntarily give it.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I would just like to put my 2 cents in encouragement for approval of this. We did a site visit as a member of the COSAC committee. We went out and saw the beef cows were calving, and one was born like within the time that we had been there. Nibley City has really a lot of developmental pressures that they have there on the south west corner of this property, and then you have Millville and Providence who have their warehouses and their industrial area that's pushing in on the other corner on the north, as well as Providence's future design. So I feel like if we really want to preserve open space that is visible, we have a 25,000 vehicle count going past this. This is about as visible as they come in as large of a space as we can find, and it benefits the whole valley. And I really hope that this is a project that we can help with in association with the partners that they're working with.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? I know I would like to, I have some concerns. Some of the concerns I have is, to me, it is a very pristine place. It's almost hallowed, and the reason it is a pristine place is because it has had a limited use. It's had a protection to still be a ranch. As soon as I hate to see us sometimes use the well, we'll give you this if you give us that kind of a attitude. In other words, I think their application comes in, and as I read it, no, they don't want public access all through there. That will change that, the whole, to be honest with you, the idea of what a ranch is. It becomes a dude ranch, and are similar to that. And we've all seen what's happened with Jackson Hole and places like that, and where they just get whittled up. Now, how far the county will pursue and say, hey, this is what we're going to require that you put something in, or if you want funding, you've got to do this and this. When we start doing those kind of things, I think you're going to have a lot of losers, not only to, to that ranch, but to a lot of other farmers and ranchers out there are going to say, I ain't going to deal with you at all. We're going to go get funding somewhere else, or we're going to do something else, or I'm selling out and headed out of here. Because, to a lot of the farmers and ranchers that actually have the large holdings, to them, the large holdings and that ranch is the open space that they wanted, not the open space and right to use all that space or portion of it. Everything can be negotiated, but I'm one of those that says, that you start kind of putting pressure on things like that. That really doesn't go in my book as far as, I don't want COSAC to turn into a second trails committee at all. I don't want that to, we got to be careful setting precedents on this one, because that'll create the attitude for all the others that maybe would like to come forward but saying, no, I'm not even going to, come forward, and we start losing land left and right because we put a staunch front on it. So I think there are options around it for the trails and stuff like that. That's just how I feel, and I just don't want to set a precedence and have the people out there start talking like, well, the only way you're going to get it is if you give the county something, if you do it their way. I just, I don't think that was really set up that way. I think it was, they've come with the application, and I'm in favor of accepting the application in the form of what the Furmans proposed. I am not in favor of what us approving with the trails portion on it. I think we just work from what they propose, and so I don't think I could vote for that portion. So. But there's a lot of work can be done between now and then, and I totally feel, I've got a chunk of land out north of Smithfield, beautiful, but I won't have a trail through it. Because then you start, instead of managing cows, you start managing people, and that's like managing 100 cows per, every person, so yes.
I made the comment that I was going to make, but I didn't ask the question. And the question is for the council members. By show of hands, how many of you would like to have a trail going through your place? Backyard, front yard, people walking past your mailbox all the time, parking in your driveway. No show of hands?
I think you can tell we're on your side.
I appreciate the opportunity you've given us to present this application. We've been working on this for a number of years. I was on the Cache County Ag Advisory Board back in 2008 when we proposed funding. And that fell through, and I thought, well, looks like it's a lost cause. But then somebody brought it to life again, and I was happy for that. And I'd like to see it thrive. I really would. You start putting stipulations, you start putting rules and regulations. I mean, this is cumbersome enough as it is. This is a 2-year project to get this through. And that's if everything qualifies. That isn't a guarantee that it'll go 2 years. Who wants to wait that long? It needs to be expeditious. It needs to be streamlined so that it'll go through without any hitches. And I'd like to see it. I'd like to see more properties put in. The county is growing. We've got a beautiful valley here. And what makes the valley beautiful is the green open spaces. And they're disappearing at an alarming rate. So I better quit while I'm ahead. Appreciate being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So our vote tonight does not necessarily need to reflect the verbiage given us from COSAC. Our vote tonight is just a yay or a nay. Am I right? Okay.
Well, that was one of my first questions when you were describing it. Does our vote say that we're here to support your recommendation, the COSAC's recommendation, which did have the trails portion in it?
On C.
The council can take an independent recommendation. Well, they could either support the COSAC recommendation, you could create your own. Staff put together a resolution that was included in the packet that didn't have any conditions associated with it. It was just a general recommendation of approval. And so you can adopt that resolution as it is presented. I'm not sure, I can pull that up.
The county council approves the Elkhorn Ranch Phase 2 Open Space Round 1 application, allowing the applicant to proceed to the second review round.
Yep. So that was the resolution that staff put together for the council to consider tonight. The council can amend that resolution if you would like, or you can approve it as is, or can continue the item if you would like more time to discuss it, or the option is to deny the application as well. So.
Well, I move to approve resolution approving the Elkhorn Ranch Phase 2 Round 1 Open Space Application Resolution 2024-09.
Can I add that, I would like to add that we maintain the agricultural open space side rather than emphasis on any trail through there.
Well, it's in the
It
resolution.
says that in the resolution.
It's in the
Does it?
resolution,
Yeah.
so as written,
Section C.
resolution is fine. is the
Okay. Then I would second that. Let me get my other glasses.
I'll start like right here.
It's moved and seconded that we approve this resolution as written.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion?
Do we have to
Doesn't
waive the
commit
rules?
to anything.
Yeah, we will.
This is the
We will have to waive the rules.
In my motion, I would like to waive the rules.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair. Second, still?
And I will second that still, so.
Okay. I like how that's written in C, that resolution. I think that's,
And that's what they pointed out to me, so I'm good
that's,
with that.
that's the, that there would be, that we recommend it, that any trails still is in negotiation,
Yeah, we
and
haven't-
we're not in favor.
And I'll just say, I'm not against trails, but this did come as an agricultural side, so I want to,
And noting that if we include a trail at this point, we may disqualify them for future funding, which we want to encourage. So
Right, right.
we don't have to make that
That's why I'm saying I
determination
just-
today.
I like that part.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? So it has been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution, and we've suspended the rules to approve this resolution 2024-09. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So now the negotiating, stand strong, keep negotiating, stand strong, keep negotiating. So, thank you very much. This is a great litmus test of everything.
Thank you for being our guinea pigs for
Chris.
the family. Thank you.
Gotta go feed her.
I want this to be a huge encouraging thing to get more applications. So, I don't want to be a negative to go the other way, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, Jeff.
You guys have. Let's go back then to ordinance 2024-04. It is initial proposal. I'll entertain a motion, or we would have to suspend the rules.
I'll entertain a motion that we suspend the rules and approve ordinance 2024-04, an ordinance amending chapter 5.08 of the county code relating to alcoholic beverages.
Striking number
6.
Striking number 6, part A, A6, 8.6.
0.070.
Six. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we suspend the rules, pass ordinance 2024-04 as amended by striking out.
Let me get the exact,
Yeah.
exact reference.
It's 5.08.070A.
0.6.
All in favor, or is there any discussion?
Can he get there so I can remember?
Yeah,
what we're
it's
striking?
that,
Yeah.
right there.
It's the
The app-
requirement
Business license.
that,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
and we will also just procedurally, we'll need to add an or to strike this or and move it here.
Okay.
That's just to make it make sense.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. With that, any additions, deletions on those 3 other business items? No? Okay, council member reports. Mark?
I'm here. Okay, thanks, Chair. Mr. Chair, just the brief report I had was one, just to mention, as the executive included in his comments about the GOEO meeting today with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity coming to visit. It was a very good visit for the 3 of us to participate in. We, I think, expressed multiple perspectives of how Cache County is growing and priorities and focus that we need to have, which was the foundational conversation, which was important, was agricultural being our number one part of the economy, our most base, the broader base of our economy, and how everything else in this valley all contribute to work well together. We want to continue that, to see Cache County be, Cache Valley, in Broad Valley, including our friends to the north, be all that it is and what we want it to be for future generations that has made it so great for us. Also, the CEO board will be meeting on Thursday, and we'll be summarizing the trade mission event that I was able to participate in, as well as Sean Milne from Bragg. We'll be providing a summary of that trip, as well as just an overview of the purpose for the visit. And Bryson and I have attempted to connect and make a formal visit for he and his first week in the new role as clerk and my role as the liaison, but we have not yet been able to connect. We've talked a bit and very encouraged about the positive direction Bryson has things going. So, but we will meet in the next week or less. I will just make sure I'm available. So that's it for me.
Thank you.
I'm not aware of anything to bring up tonight.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Nothing?
Since our last meeting, I was involved in the meeting with the broadband. It was through Bragg, and they brought in suppliers of broadband, and they, basically what it is the state has money available to meet the underserved areas of our valley, and they've done a determination of where those areas are, but there is a 40-day period where any of those suppliers can challenge. They need to be doing some specific tests to challenge what they've said so that they know where they would be able to apply for grant funds to meet those needs. And so it's kind of a big deal in the more rural parts of our valley, but it's not really something we as a county council would take care of. It's more to support those broadband suppliers who are willing to take that economic risk and get out there to meet our underserved areas. But they talked a lot about how it's vastly or it's quickly becoming important to look at broadband, or at least having usable internet service, as kind of the same as our utilities like gas and electric. It's almost a necessity in some ways for people to be safe.
That's too bad.
Huh?
That's too bad.
I know, but it is something as we move forward, that we need to try and support that as they try and reach everyone. And the other thing, Mayor Daines brought this up this morning in a GOEO meeting, but I have met with her privately before too, this last couple of weeks, about the homeless issues in the valley, and we're moving in some different directions, and we need to maybe really be looking at some different opportunities to address some of those issues. And the LHC, the Local Homeless Council, has a lot of really good providers that are working on that, and so hopefully soon I'll have more to report on that. Like, what are some of the things that maybe we can do to support that effort? But that's my report.
Carl.
We met as an audit committee this week, and we approved and presented the scope of our audit, approved Joan Simpkins as our auditor again, and they'll be moving forward with that audit. We also met, as we already discussed, as the O&P committee, and we've already voted on the results of what we discussed in O&P. That's what we focused on, was the alcohol ordinance. We don't know yet why it ended up being changed from what we originally approved in April of 2021, but the final outcome was far different. So we don't know what happened, but we've got it straightened out again
Any other comments? I don't have anything except for, I think Carl's comment there is to, I think it's important for us to find out how that happened on on the alcohol ordinance so that we can put policies together so it never will happen again. So, but I'm glad we've stepped up, got things corrected, and I think it's a good policy for us to move forward with. So I think it's look at that, we're at 6:30. We'll now go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. Second.
Move second, we go into executive session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?